Hi, my name's Nicole, and I'm making this video today to share with you a talk that I recently did at an event called She Talks in Surrey, BC, about my experience with mental illness. July 2nd, 2009 was the day I realized I was on this earth for a purpose. My face was just pounded by the airbag that went off in front of me, and it just about took my breath away. It happened so fast, I barely had time to think about what just happened in the last 2 seconds. My seatbelt locking me into place, preventing me from flying through the windshield. Then with tears running down my face, I think to myself, why didn't this work? I faintly remember hearing the smashing of the car as it crushed in all around me and people running over to get me out. The car door was so crushed it had to be pulled off its hinges in order for me to get out. My legs were jammed, and as two men pulled me out, my left leg gave out, so they carried me across the street and placed me down in the grass. As they are carrying me across the street, I look over at the car they just pulled me from, and I'm amazed I just survived. The whole front of the car is crushed in all the way past the front seats of the car, but it was as if there was a protective barrier around my seat. The car was a complete write-off, but I wasn't. I was 16 years old, and I had just crashed my car into a pole going 80 kilometers an hour. What was going through my mind, you may wonder? I'm a burden to those around me. I'm not worthy of life. I'm a waste of space. I just want to die. That was the last time I tried to end my life. I was lucky enough to walk away from that accident with only minor whiplash. Some people are not as lucky. That was a turning point in my life, and when I finally realized that if I'm meant to live, I need to live it the way I want to and the way I always hoped I could. So when I was released from the psychiatric ward for the third and final time, I started a new chapter in my life. I graduated high school with good grades. I stopped taking the medications that weren't helping me. I started using the coping skills I had been taught. I went to college to become a counselor, and when I wasn't happy doing that, I dropped out despite not knowing what I was going to do next. What I did know was that I was going to give myself a fighting chance at living a good life, which I deserved. Now let me back up a bit. What was it that led me to the moment when I thought I would rather die than live just one more second? At 12 years old, I started to get bullied pretty bad, and it got to the point where I isolated myself and started to get depressed. At 13, I thought about ending my life for the first time because of it. Between 14 and 15, some unfortunate situations happened to me, which hurt me both mentally and emotionally, and at 15, I started to display symptoms of borderline personality disorder and was later diagnosed at 16. There are many symptoms of borderline, but the ones that I started to exhibit on a daily basis were extreme sensitivity, like having an exposed nerve ending. Small things can trigger intense reactions. Persistent fear of abandonment and rejection, intense, highly changeable moods, suicidal thoughts and actions, and unhealthy attachments to people. I have experienced all of these symptoms and more, sometimes all within an hour. Some people label us as dramatic, a drama queen, over the top, attention-seeking, and manipulative. I have been called all of these, most surprisingly by counselors and psychiatrists. Between the ages of 13 and 16, I tried to end my life numerous times and frequently self-harmed. At times, I tried to end my life at least once a week because the emotional pain felt much greater than any happiness I could have in this life. I spent time in the psychiatric ward 3 times in 2 different hospitals and went through numerous counselors and was put on numerous antidepressant and antipsychotic medication with very little success. Medications numbed me emotionally but didn't help the problem, which is like putting a band-aid on an infection. Then when you take that band-aid off, the infection is still there. When I stopped taking my medications, the pain was still there. Being labeled mentally ill changed the way I looked at myself. I felt like an outsider in my group of friends. I felt as though I was doomed to live a miserable life and that this was as good as it was ever going to get for me. All I kept hearing in my head was, you will never be good enough and you will never be happy. Because of the stigma that comes with mental illness, I never talked about it with anyone outside my immediate family. I didn't want anyone to know my secret for fear that once they knew, they wouldn't want to be around me anymore. So I felt as though I suffered alone and in silence, like being locked in a closet with no one and no way out. I felt as though I would be treated differently by my friends and family, that teachers wouldn't give me the same opportunities in class, that I wouldn't measure up to the same standards as everyone else, like I was somehow less than. Because of this, my self-confidence and self-worth were at its lowest. I always wanted to be a nurse, but I never believed I would be smart enough to be accepted into such a competitive program, so I ditched that dream. But on that day, July 2nd, 2009, I finally realized that I could no longer allow this diagnosis to run my life. I had let it dictate what my life was going to look like for too long. It was now time for me to sit in the front seat and steer myself in the direction that I wanted to go in life. I had to do what I wanted to do and not let anything get in the way of that. I never believed I would live past 18 years old, and in fact I think deep down it was a goal of mine, but I wasn't destined for that. Instead, I took life into my own hands and I started to create the life I wanted. I started to take risks, believe in myself more, feel more confident, be more social, and my life started to turn around. I did end up going back to school in 2013 and got accepted into nursing school and succeeded. I got my first nursing job at one of the leading addiction treatment facilities in Canada called Freedom from Addiction, and I recently took a leap of faith and moved to Victoria, BC, where I continue to work as a nurse. A province I've always dreamed of living in, but never thought at 26 I would get that opportunity. Writing has always been an outlet for me, so in the midst of my chaos, I started to write about my experiences when I was 16 in hopes that one day it would turn into a book to help others. Today, I am a self-published author of 3 books, 2 of which describe those years of my life and how I got through, and I've recently gone down the road of public speaking. The 16-year-old shy me with no self-confidence never thought she would be speaking in public today. I never thought my life would be as good as it is right now, and I feel incredibly blessed to have survived and thrived and to be able to live the life I do now. That's not to say that I don't struggle to this day. I still deal with symptoms of borderline, just not to the extreme that I used to. I don't think I will ever be completely free of this mental illness, but what I do know is that I will continue to manage it in a much better way. I did not choose to have this mental illness, but what I did choose was how I was going to live despite it. I may have a mental illness, but the mental illness does not have me, and that is where our power lies. I've learned that it's important to not let a diagnosis dictate how your life is going to be. It has no say in how your life will turn out, but rather it's what you decide your life is going to be. We all deserve to live out our dreams. It's our human right. Our voices deserve to be heard, and in fact they need to be heard in order to end the stigma. Let's educate, not discriminate. And to those of you who suffer with mental illness, no matter what it is, please know this. You are strong, you are beautiful, you are brave, you are incredibly powerful. You are not the labels people throw at you, and you are most definitely important. Take life by the reins and steer it in the direction you'd like to go. Anything is possible, and you can live out your dreams. I know firsthand.